The MacArthur Maze. An intersection of three major California highways, the I-580, the I-880, and the nation's second longest highway, running from New Jersey to the San Francisco Bay Area, the Interstate 80. This elevated static river of concrete, asphalt, and steel towers some 90 feet above the ground. Also known by its original name, the distribution structure, this interchange allows 300,000 cars each day to travel to all four corners of the Bay Area. This multi-level junction, packed with hundreds of vehicles that are zigzagging and crisscrossing while heading into various directions, is one of the most important intersections in California. But long before the maze was built, another man-made structure rose above a different kind of landscape.
It's a burial site, a graveyard, a native graveyard.
Thank you so much for coming out today. When we stand here together, we stand on a sacred site, the sacred sites of my ancestors. My ancestors were right in this space. This place was the biggest one of all 425 shell mounds that once ringed the entire Bay Area.
Shell mounds are our burial sites of our ancestors, and they got larger and larger as people passed away. And they just so happened to also work for us to have ceremonies as they grew on top. And on the top of those shell mounds, we would light fires to send signals. And since there's no electricity, imagine seeing those fires at night all along the bay. We were able to impact a lot of people. We were able to trade places.
But industry and an amusement park heavily damaged the shell mound. And eventually made way for a multi-complex shopping mall, luxury apartments, and a 16-screen movie theater. All of it conveniently built next to the MacArthur Maze, which today stands almost twice as tall as the sacred hill where the people who first called this place home laid their loved ones to rest.
People destroyed this because they didn't know what it was. They give us this little tiny memorial that's supposed to represent thousands of years of my ancestors. That's not what it's about.
Even though the shape of the land now looks different, it's important for us to continue to go back there. It doesn't make it any less sacred because now there's a parking lot on top of it, or there's a mall on top of it, or there's a school or bar or railroad tracks on top of it. It is our relationality to that land and that space. So there are songs that need to be sung there. There are prayers that need to be put down there. But I think that there's no honor of the Ohlone people. There's no idea that we still exist. And that's what's so difficult about living in the city when your traditional territory is built upon by these communities that came much later on and have destroyed those sacred places.
The Temescal Creek, once the lifeline of the Ohlone people, today remains a hidden waterway covered by asphalt and cement. The I-880 flyover touches down right on top where the stream of fresh water flows into the San Francisco Bay. Willets, dunlins, and marble godwits are among the thousands of birds that flew from all over the Americas to winter along the California coast. Some have opted for the muddy shore of the State Marine Reserve that's nestled against the maze. But just a couple of feet below, from where the birds stick their beaks into the mud, lies a mixture of toxic waste and landfill consisting of rubble dating back to the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. Partly built on the same fill in the 1930s, the maze has since played a major role in the economic development of the state of California. It's an integral link in a system that enables mass transportation of people and goods, which is at the heart of Oakland.
In the 1860s, the location of Oakland was recognized as a really good location for deep water vessels coming up from the Golden Gate. They needed a place to anchor. And that was the beginning of Oakland as a freight terminus. The next huge thing was the construction of the Central Pacific Railroad. It terminated in Oakland. It's the place where the railway ends and where the shipping comes in. And when the Central Pacific yards came in, they brought in huge numbers of jobs. They were pretty well paid and they were permanent. So it becomes a hub, it becomes an attractant, it becomes a magnet. And if you wanted to travel from Oakland in the East Bay to San Francisco, you'd have to get on a ferry. And so especially in that area of the MacArthur Maze, everything is really focused around there in terms of transportation. That's what brought people there. That's what gave people good jobs, transportation.
As the engine of the second industrial revolution started picking up steam, and Oakland came of age as the transportation nexus of the American West, dreams that once seemed far-fetched were now within arm's reach.
After 80 years of planning and 3 years of actual building, the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge is completed, the largest engineering structure ever conceived and built by men. Now for the official opening ceremony. The golden chain is cut with an acetylene torch. Whistles shriek. The harbor fireboats streak the air with ribbons of water. And the first cars to cross the world's largest bridge come rolling along like a regiment of soldiers.
And meet what was built in the shadows of this new world wonder, the distribution structure. Basic and far less grand and impressive than the Bay Bridge, but undeniably linked. And in the following 80 years, the interchange and its freeways would leave a lasting impact on the communities surrounding this modern-day crossroads. The bright side of the bay flourished, and the screeching sound of steel wheels coming to a halt echoed throughout West Oakland, as trains still dominated transportation. Every day, dozens of black workers arrived at and departed from these yards. And as they unionized, the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters instilled the activist spirit that the town would become known for. Traveling all over the United States by rail, they advertised this place called Oakland, California, and the black cultural capital on the Pacific became a home.
My family has been here since the 1860s. And I have never, ever forgotten what Oakland was about. I guess in a certain sense, I have some type of romantic idea about Oakland. These were the people who were able to, make a pretty comfortable living for their families.
Despite the restrictions and racism black people faced in the Golden State, the first generation away from slavery was able to enjoy a middle-class life and own their own property in West Oakland.
It was really kind of idyllic. But there was white flight.
There is an internal threat. Like a cancer, it feeds upon and drains the economy and vitality of the entire city. Almost in the shadow of the City Hall can be found the end result of this disease, the slum. Yes, this too is Oakland. The taxpayers in the good areas of the city pay for the slum. City officials and department heads have worked together to assure steady progress and proper planning for Oakland's rejuvenated future, to prevent the spread of deterioration.
The Cypress Street Viaduct is essentially a 2-mile-long double-deck structure connecting the Bay Bridge distribution structure on the north with the east-west section of the East Shore Freeway. The completed project provides 4 lanes northbound on the lower deck, 4 lanes southbound on the upper deck. They're now arriving at the distribution structure. With appropriate pomp and ceremony, attended by notables too numerous to mention, the Cypress Street Viaduct was open to traffic.
The new freeways that sprouted from the distribution structure in the 1950s and wrapped their tentacles around West Oakland were bigger, wider, and higher, displacing hundreds of families, businesses, and cultural institutions. It cracked open the social fabric of the people who made this strip on the southeast corner of the maze home.
And we became more and more isolated. The freeway just displaced my whole life, I feel. And some people in my community who, they don't know it, but they really had an impact on making me the woman I am today. They're gone. And just little kernels of nuggets of stuff, okay? In certain circles, they saw the freeway as a conduit for them getting to where they needed to be. They could get to San Francisco, that's where the jobs were, but nobody wanted to get to us. At the same time, dope was being dropped into our neighborhood.
I'll never call this home because I don't want this to be permanent. It's probably why I haven't got a tent, because it's like admitting, you feel me? It's some type of shelter. It's not a very good shelter, because when it rains, you stand on the freeway, you're still gonna get wet. Surprisingly, they're steadily building condos for people who aren't from here. They just care about money and getting richer. So people say it's, you know, it's economics, it's not race anymore. It is race to a certain extent. I think it's not fair for a person that didn't grow up in a neighborhood flooded with drugs to judge a person who did grow up in a neighborhood overran with drugs for being on drugs. And there's a group of people that move down here that are like turning their nose up towards us and pointing the finger towards us. It's not just homeless people, it's homeless black people. The freeway is not a roof over my head, brother. Roof over my head, I'm thinking 4 walls right up under that roof. Some type of heat, some type of couch, and some type of cable TV. Very hard to hear, very hard to sleep. Very hard to sleep, it's hard to sleep. Constant noise, cars, police siren.
The maze is a mess, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the maze, it's a necessary evil in this day and time, because people have to have it in order to get where they're going.
I try not to fight the traffic, but at the same time, it's like, 611. There you go, buddy. Inch your way in. Oh, look at this. There's nothing communal about this. Communal kind of, I know, gives this picture that we're in this together. I think we're like all little individual modules. We don't interact unless you're asking me to let in or be let in, or I'm asking you to be let in, or you're flipping me off, or you're honking at me. Fuck you! You are not getting in. this is a physical manifestation of the rat race, right? This is what it feels like. What is this guy doing? No. We're all like these little beings trying to get to our very important lives and trying to navigate this maze. So maybe if I wasn't navigating the maze on such a regular basis, I could see beauty in it. But it's very hard for me to see beauty in this. It's like just further disconnect. And here I am in my SUV driving into the city.
From a bird's eye perspective, the freeway interchange known as the MacArthur Maze separates 4 different landscapes: a port, a mall, a neighborhood, and a state park. It stands as a testimony of the history of the eastern shore of the San Francisco Bay. As a gateway to one of the busiest bridges in the United States, the maze is a kaleidoscopic monument of the everyday mundane, and each frame, each layer represent what has been and what and who had to move in order for others to move around.